Good morning from beautiful Brisbane, Australia. It's Friday. Yay! Welcome to the Conscious Warrior. And here is where we do complex PTSD recovery proactively. Now, if you're here for the first time, welcome. It's great to have you with us. And if you're here and it's Friday or Thursday in the Northern Hemisphere, tell me what you want to do for the weekend. Have you pre-planned what you want to do for some time out for you to nourish your heart and soul, make you feel good and set you up for the week ahead? And remember, one of the key ingredients to be able to do that is to actually plan it. It helps our mind and our actual brain make us get it done. And here's why: because the brain loves goals. It loves to have something to work towards. It's a natural part of us. But anyhow, so make a note now. I must pre-plan what I want to do to have time out for the weekend. Now, if you're guilty like me of not planning it because there's other things that you want to do, that's okay too. I have a big mission this weekend to finish wording all the courses in the academy. And then I actually want to have some time out and go down to the water and just sit and read for a while too. So I promise I will plan that in, because one of my strategies now at the moment too is to become time effective. Now, I don't mean slotting everything in and we're going to run like, there's one direction and that's it. I mean, building that awareness of time management into me. And as I did a time management video earlier this week, and as one of our class said, it can be really hard to know what to do without it in front of us, because 40% of the information that goes into our brain is from the visual. So I actually posted links towards page 2 and opening diaries for Australia and 4 worldwide on Amazon, and they're in the video down below in the feed. Now today what we're going to do is, first of all, say g'day, and then I've got this book called Running on Empty. Now, it's called Overcome Your Childhood Emotional Neglect. I got it thinking, well, I actually didn't think too much about it. I just thought, okay, let's get it in for a read. If I'm overcoming it, that's in my era. However, the important part of this book is actually right at the beginning with an emotional neglect questionnaire. Now, the rest of the book, this is a really good book if you're putting your first footsteps on the ground with emotional neglect. So it goes through lots of different examples. And the thing with emotional neglect is it can happen in households that externally look like everything is good. So the parents, have a decent income, you have a decent home, what else? So all the basic ingredients of life, so food, shelter, clothing, they're all there. But the emotional neglect wound is really hard to identify, because externally everything can look okay, but internally the impact of emotional neglect on us is actually, it can actually make us really unwell in adulthood if we don't know it's there. Now, this particular book is really good, as I said, for when you put your first feet on the ground with emotional neglect, because not only does it have examples, it has ways to work through the beginning steps of it. Because I've been on this journey for a number of years, decades now, the exercises weren't what I wanted. I've actually got another couple of books that are more advanced, but I do recommend this if you're putting your first feet on the ground in regards to emotional neglect. Now, the important part was in the front of the book, which was the emotional neglect questionnaire, which I just want to run through with you so that you can have an idea if emotional neglect is part of your recovery. Okay, so part of your journey into wholeness and wellness and understanding what's happened for you internally. Because remember, we need the language to wrap our mind around it. And once we can wrap our mind around it, then we can begin to do the internal work because it all makes sense. And then we feel far more comfortable examining what's happening for us internally because we have anchor points along the way to go, right, this is the actual specific thing I need to work on for me. So the first question is, sometimes you feel like you don't belong with your family or friends. I grew up believing I was adopted. I knew I wasn't, but I absolutely felt like I must be adopted because I just don't feel like I belong. So if you've had that feeling, say amen and just go, yeah, I can really relate to that. And I used to really sit there going, I have to be adopted. I don't fit in here. And then I'd look up my birth certificate and go, no, I'm not adopted. But this doesn't make sense. And this is in no way downgrading people who are adopted. One of my clients has been adopted, and the emotional neglect that they went through was pretty huge as well. So it actually impacts even more when you are adopted, for reasons we won't go into right now. Number 2, pride yourself on not relying upon others. So are you an adult whose internal dialogue is, don't worry about it, I can do it myself. It's better that I do it because it won't be done how I want it. That's actually really unhealthy, and it stops us from connecting in with the people that we're living with, and we need to be able to turn that around. Number 3, have difficulty asking for help. I can't tell you the number of people that I work with that have difficulty asking for help, but I want to tell you that I used to, but it's one of the things that I actually consciously practice now. And as a parent, it's really important that we consciously practice this as well, because our kids want to feel connected to us, not just for their needs, but they want to know that they can be there for us as well. And I nearly fell off my feet the other day because I went to Nick and I said, look, I just need some help at the moment. I couldn't get the motivation to start doing my trauma-informed movement. And I said, can you just come and sit with me while I do the movement? Because I know that it impacts my brain health and makes me well. Gets me from survivor brain back into learner brain. And you know what? He came and did trauma-informed movement with me. And at the end, he said to me, thanks for letting me into your life. And I was like, you know, I never understood that just by asking for help can help someone feel like they've been let into my life. And I thought, I do that so often too. I might ring one of my best friends, or they ring me and they say, how you doing? And I'll say, oh, the depression's hit me like a freight train at the moment, but I'm working through it. I never actually say, oh, can we just talk for a minute while I work through what's triggered me or anything like that? So I'm making a conscious effort to do that as well, because the connection's important both ways, all right? Number 4, have friends or family who complain that you are aloof or distant. I didn't have that because I was a people pleaser, but maybe you have that and your family feel like they're not connecting with you. So it's a really good question to ask, is that happening for you? Number 5, feel you have not met your potential in life. Definitely look at that if you're feeling like that. So remember, we're going through an emotional neglect questionnaire. Often you just want to be left alone. And with complex trauma, this is a real catch-22 situation, because with emotional neglect, we feel like we want to be left alone. But the reality is we actually feel like we need to be connected in. And it's such a catch-22 cycle. It goes around and around and around. But we can break free from it, all right? It takes a few conscious steps, but we can do it. Number 7, secretly feel that you may be a fraud. Now, this is different to imposter syndrome. Imposter syndrome are people who are doing a really good job but don't feel that it's warranted, okay? It's like they believe that they're doing their job, but they're an imposter. It's make-believe, okay? But for us, it's part of our brain, our sense of self hasn't been developed yet. So that's what you need to be looking at in this area for complex PTSD. Tend to feel uncomfortable in social situations, and we all put our hands up and said yes. I can't tell you how often I've tried to navigate social situations, and after the event I go, oh, I don't think I should have said that. But we all manage to navigate our way through it. One of my ways through I don't think I should have said that was to learn how to go back to the person and say, look, I've said this. Was it something I should have said? Have I upset you? Etc., etc. So it's learning how to go back and have those communication touch points with people. Good morning, Kathy. Kathy says she needs this today. I understand. When I read this questionnaire too, I was like, oh, yes, I understand. This is the wound. Number 9, we often feel disappointed with or angry at ourselves. And I definitely used to spend a lot of time angry at myself. Someone once said to me, oh, you've got anger issues. And I took it to mean that they were saying, I've got anger issues at the world. And I wasn't angry at the world. I was carrying all this internal anger, and I didn't know it because I was so frustrated. And one of the keys to breaking free from that anger was to understand that complex PTSD actually gives us inflexible thinking because we're running on survival brain. So when I understood that, at first when I read that we had inflexible thinking, I went, no, I don't. And then I laughed and went, okay, let's look at this. And the inflexible thinking is we want to stay on one track because it keeps us safe. So then with this, to stop feeling angry at myself, I gave myself permission to just say, it's okay if I don't get this right. It's okay if it ends up messy. I'm able to renegotiate what I'm going to do in this situation. And it's that self-talk that really turned things around for me. Okay, you judge yourself more harshly than you judge others. Absolutely. The inner critic used to be full-blown inside of me, and we can turn that around. Compare yourselves to others and often find yourself sadly lacking. Especially in the age of the internet, this is a key thing that people are really struggling with too. I didn't struggle with it because I found with complex trauma, with living in survival brain so much, I was so busy trying to be safe, okay, than to worry about other people. The way I would have judged myself and found myself lacking with other people, actually, this is one area where I did. I kept believing that when I looked at other people, they were kind and caring and soft and compassionate, and that it was something that I had to attain. And then in the end, I realized that I just am that person, but it comes in a different flavor. I am soft and kind and caring and compassionate. It just comes in a louder version than people. Like, I've had to learn to speak up. So the people that I was observing earlier in life, they didn't speak up very much, whereas I had to learn to use my voice. So we can look at it from different aspects and take what we need from it, but it still points to the emotional wound being there. We find it easier to love animals than people. We just all nodded our head and said amen. Often feel irritable or unhappy for no apparent reason. I definitely did that years ago, so about over 20 years ago. I definitely felt like this. I definitely felt that internally there was something I couldn't put my finger on, and I kept looking for answers, and of course back then there was no answers. So we kept looking. Often have trouble knowing what you're feeling. True. We go with the first response usually. whereas when we dig a bit deeper, we actually get to the core of it. Have trouble identifying your strengths and weaknesses. So if somebody said to you, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses, would you be able to describe them? Kathy says, I've been described lately as interesting. Yeah. Probably because in our life we have to keep looking for answers more than just the average Joe person does. You're wonderful. Remember that. You're wonderful. Sometimes feel like you're on the outside looking in. That's pretty obvious. And think about dissociation. It can really feel like that with dissociation as well. Kind of like we can't quite touch what's happening inside of us. And we learn to do that through a number of different processes, whether it's coaching, whether it's therapy, whether it's sitting in a group with other people. The important thing to remember is, in this particular area, is that with complex PTSD, when we were kids, we actually observed other people and we came to know what they were thinking via what their behaviour was. So we have to be careful to sit back and not identify with other people because we can see what's happening for them internally and just focus on what's happening for us internally, okay? Believe you're one of those people who could easily live as a hermit. And for all those like me, we all just said amen. I say to people, look, yes, I do my Facebook lives and I love it and it's part of my life because in my heart I want to help so many people break free from complex PTSD. But my goal was, if I'd had a goal years ago, it would have been just to be in a log cabin somewhere writing and publishing. That would have been it. But as we grow further along and break free, we actually come to know ourselves better and our personality better. And we realise that living like a hermit really isn't going to achieve our purpose in life. So let's give up the hermit attitude and discover who we are as an individual. And I think that hermit stuff can come from too, that the overwhelming feeling in our life in childhood where things just were out of our control. So if I go away, it's a belief, if I go away and live on my own and do my own thing, then life will be peaceful. But we can have peace in amongst day-to-day life as an adult now too. So it's unpacking what your internal belief is and letting it go and going, yeah, that was okay. I needed that at the time, but I don't need it today. Do you have trouble calming yourself? Sometimes I do. Sometimes it's like, an explosion goes off, not externally, internally. It's like my mind blows and I'm like, I've got to calm down and try and work out how to deal with this. And I have to walk away, and I choose to walk away until I can deal with it. But the other side of this is too, my younger son, who's 21, if he sees me upset, he makes me talk about it now. So I raise them to talk about how they're feeling, and now, it's kind of like the tables are turned. And it's really good. It takes me a while to process what's happening internally, especially if I'm driving the car at the same time. But it's actually teaching me that I can process them and talk about them, and I don't have to have the right answer straight away. It's an evolving process of how I'm feeling and understanding it. So take time to do it. So teach your kids, and then they'll teach you. Feeling there's something holding you back from being present in the moment, definitely with complex PTSD, because until we develop that internal awareness of when we're dissociating, so going off into our imagination, we will continue to have that feeling. Once we're building the awareness around behaviour, emotions and dissociation, then this feeling actually will not be present. Okay, secretly feel that there's something wrong with you. Oh yeah, I spent I'm laughing now because it's like, finally somebody understands. I spent many years feeling like this and didn't know why. But once we have the language, it's like, oh wow, it all makes sense now. Yeah, Kathy says, staying calm in the midst of chaos, big and small. Absolutely. But sometimes we have to go through the process of understanding what's happening internally, being able to verbalize what's happening internally. And then when we can do that process, it's like, then I'm able to know, I have that experience that I'm able to stay calm. And once we build the experience bank is when we break free as well. Struggle with self-discipline. With complex PTSD, it's there. We struggle with self-discipline, but when we've developed our sense of self, which actually is something we need to do, and it's part of our brain development that was missed in childhood, then you'll find that the ability to have self-discipline is there, except when you're triggered. But then when you're triggered, because your ability to self-discipline is back, then you're going to be able to manage your triggers a lot better. Okay? Now, we've experienced more than these. So if you've got emotional neglect happening, this book is a good starter. Okay? If you're further down the track, I've got a couple of books that I'm reading at the moment, which when I'm finished them, plural, I will let you know about them and I will recommend them. But like I said, this book's really for the list was key, and then the rest of it is really getting hold of good examples, wrapping your mind around the examples, and then at the end of the book it gives you exercises to do so that you can integrate it into your day-to-day life and build resilience around the different aspects that are happening in your individual life. Okay, thanks for tuning in all week, girls. Great to have you with me. And if you're here on YouTube, remember to hit subscribe, or Facebook, hit the notifications so you know when I go live. Have a great weekend. Remember to plan it. And I will be back Monday with more information to help us break free from complex PTSD. Bye for now.